Welcome, one and all, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Skylanders and Sky Watchers. Always wonder what I should say for the intro right there, but hopefully that is appropriate. Welcome to the Vash Sky ParkCast. My name is Vash Sky, and I'm going to be taking you through today's stories today. Now, very, very interesting. We might have a guest at the end of the show right there. Might. But, hey, you know what? I am also going to be on a panel. If this isn't enough Vash Sky for you, going to be on a panel later today. Actually, simulcast on this channel and with Jared's channel over there at Capture the Magic, going over some theme park news with Orange 55. Obviously, Jared there. It's going to be a lot of fun. Please go ahead and come over and check it out after the stream has concluded. But this is the stream you want to be a part of, that is for sure, and very much appreciate everybody coming on over from that park place to join us for this amazing stream. Goodness gracious, what isn't going on? It's crazy what is actually happening in the theme park world right now. It is so dynamic. It is changing every single day. It is illuminating just how much stuff is going on right now. Yes, as you may have heard at the conclusion of that park place, we have a plethora of great stories for you today. Also one that's a little bit sad, unfortunately, but I think it's one that's very, very important to tell because I don't really see a lot of coverage of it out there. And over here at Vash Sky ParkCast, we like to go ahead and bring up some stories that maybe, not to say that they're being overlooked, but maybe, there is some coverage right there that is falling, between the cracks, as it were, from some of the other outlets. So we'll go ahead and bring those stories up. But unfortunately, this time, a little bit sadder. Also sad, hey, the end of MagicBands, potentially. That's really, really something. We'll go into maybe why that is. Also, too, is Space Mountain over there at Tokyo Disneyland, well, is it the next coaster to get the Omni coaster that has been obviously so anticipated by fans after having ridden something like what is it? Cosmic Rewind over there at Epcot. Yes, Guardians of the Galaxy. That's what I was looking for right there. The old noggin. And then you have, obviously, Fast and Furious over there. Hollywood. Maybe that technology is actually coming over to not just Universal, but also to Disney in the form of Tokyo's version of Space Mountain. Very, very cool stuff right there. Also, too, Muppet Paint Job. Wow. That Muppet Makeover, I don't know if Rock and Roller Coaster necessarily benefited from that. Now, look, a lot of people have been talking about that guitar right there, which is a choice, although I understand what they were doing, that they were going for. It's the wall behind there that I have issues with, but we'll get into that and much, much more. But first, we want to go ahead and get into this story right here. Go ahead and share my screen just real fast and bring this up. Now, this is an old article from the Orange County Register right here. I'm just going to show you the headline. Disneyland tests automated turnstiles in $4.8 million entrance makeover. Disneyland Resort automated entry gate project expected to be complete in 2025, in which it was. This is dated March of 2024. That's when this whole project started. And again, they spent about $5 million at least on it. Who knows how much in development cost, everything else. That was just the number on the permit. So this was an expensive project for them. Well, it has created a little bit of controversy here in 2026. You'll note that in previous Vash Sky ParkCast coverage, we did cover this story right here. This was published April 21st, 2026. Facial recognition signs added to Disneyland's Mickey and Friends parking structure. In this case right here, not only did they add in the fact that they were actually doing facial recognition, which is, a product of their new system. You can just see right there where that camera would be. Imagine that the sensors are inside in order to tell which from which, and also too the screen by which you interact with in order to scan your admission media, and then obviously your ticket is attached. Your face, what they call a face print, actually is imprinted on that ticket going forward. Now, if you want to go ahead and opt out of this facial recognition system by which these guests are verified through, you can, as can be seen right here. And this I thought was very, very interesting when we actually brought it up because I had not really seen those facial recognition park entry signs before. And a lot of people are wondering, okay, well, what's the significance of this? Well, it's twofold, actually. There have been some privacy concerns related to this, and there's been actually some big name outlets actually covering that side of the story. What I also want to go ahead and point up here as well with this is that, well, in classic Disney fashion, they didn't spend $5 million for no reason. And in this case, well, it may have been to save on labor, which I predicted early on, that's exactly what they were going to do. Because, look, if you wanted to go ahead and speed up the speed by which you actually scan your ticket and go forward, you could do that with just as many cast members, maybe provided in a different fashion or with a different setup and so forth. No. They wanted to go ahead and eliminate a lot of those rules, as we see right here from Disney Scoop Guide. Now that they're using facial recognition at the Disneyland Resort gates, instead of having cast members manually confirm people faces, they've cut the number of front gate cast members down from 1 per entry lane to 1 per every 2 entry lanes. Yes, and I do believe that will maybe increase as efficiencies are fully realized by the Walt Disney Company as part of this change right here, which is, to me, no good. I don't like to see this side of it. And that's why I was pretty clear on my X account and what I actually posted right there. It was never about convenience or speed. It was always about labor. In fact, almost every decision at the Experiences Division in the Josh D'Amaro era has been about reducing costs and maximizing revenue potential. And this includes Rivers of America, as what happened in Walt Disney World's Magic Kingdom, where it has been completely eliminated. You might be thinking, well, wait a minute, how does that necessarily save them on cost? And it's like, well, they don't have an entire river to maintain or a real working steamboat to maintain on that river either. And guess what? With this Cars Land project, with Villains Land just beyond it, they can sell lightning lanes to each of those individual attractions. You'll never sell lightning lane for, the fort over there on Tom Sawyer's Island, or even the Liberty Bell riverboat. But hey, you know what? We'll go ahead and we'll add lightning lane on to the places we can, which would be, in this case, their version of Cars Land, I guess, and also Villains Land. No good. The fries, the whole fry controversy, maybe you heard about it, maybe you haven't. They went with a lower quality fry option, or in some cases eliminated some sides and just substituted with fries in general all over the Disneyland Resort. In fact, it was, dozens and dozens and dozens of restaurants that actually did this, which was no good. Why? Because they want to go ahead and save on costs. Why provide a great quality experience when some people, well, they might actually just engage with it anyway, but pay the same price, get an inferior product, and move on. That's the calculation that they made, and that's what it is. Entry lanes, obviously, and also too, Muppet Vision 3D. You might be thinking as well, like, what? How does that save costs there? Well, remember, there was a plethora of old school audio animatronics that they had to maintain in order to keep that show operational, along with a cast member that would actually go around during at least 2 of the scenes right there in a big old costume. So let's go ahead and get rid of that entire thing, substitute some of those audio animatronics with newer aged audio animatronics that are more cost effective to maintain, and, well, Bob's your uncle right there. And there's just so many of these decisions that you might not intrinsically think is about reducing costs or maximizing revenue, but indeed so many of them are. And that's what brings us to the next point in this article, and a pause I'm going to take right there in order to highlight some of the people who have been so supportive of us. There you go. From the New York Post, fans erupt. Disneyland rolls out facial recognition technology across park entrances. I'm not so keen on that title right there because, well, there was no fan eruption in this article right here. But it is certainly a point of grave concern, at least with some folk that are going to the Disneyland Resort in current year. This by Zane Khan, by the way. We'll get into this in just a moment, but like I said, let's go ahead and honor some of the people who have decided to gift most graciously. Like, for example, Juliet over here with the gifting of 5 British pounds sterling. Well, thank you so much, Juliet. Very much appreciate that. Evening, Vash Sky ParkCast and Skyliners. Indeed. Evening, at least where you are in the world. For us, at least on the West Coast anyway of North America, it is still morning. So, tip of tip of the hat to you wherever you might be. And Just a Duchy makes her triumphant return to Vash Sky ParkCast and all of our associated channels by gifting 5 Vash Sky ParkCast memberships right here. We have 5 new, actually, Sky Watchers as part of our community that is continuing to grow here on Vash Sky ParkCast. Thank you so much for gifting these out. Just Dutchy, very much appreciate that. Hopefully, I know you were maybe dealing with some family issues. Hopefully those things have been resolved in a way that, well, is better for, the best outcome that could have possibly happened in whatever instance that you were dealing with. Hopefully that was achieved right there. I know I don't want to give up too much away, but thank you so much. Really, you've been one of the greatest supporters of this channel and making my dream come true. So thank you for that. We have Mark Linzeitz right there, becoming a new Sky Watcher. Mr. Seymour Duck, hey! Come on in. The water is warm. You have now been gifted a membership. Good sir. We have G. Jensen, 1000 right there. We have Jim Webb, 6820. And Tanya Marshall, 9979. All becoming new Sky Watchers. If you are a Sky Watcher, by the way, that affords you the ability to see our Saturday show, Vash and Vixen, which, by the way, I will say, pretty proud of this last episode right there. So if you haven't actually seen it yourself, now with your new Sky Watcher ability, go back, watch that show. I think it's really, really good. We dive into a lot of the nitty-gritty when it comes to Disney history and so forth, and Disneyland history especially. I think it was a really, really good show, and a lot of people really, really enjoyed that experience. Again, it's something we do every single week on Saturdays, I believe at 3 p.m. Eastern right there. So now, you Sky Watchers have the ability to join in on the fun. Very, very cool stuff indeed. We have, Capture the Magic? Yeah, don't face scam me, bro. Yeah, I'm not going to face scam you. That's not going to happen. Or face scan, yeah. I would prefer that, we go back to the old-fashioned method, maybe, of having cast members actually facially recognize photos, right, that are attached to ticket media and so forth. But I obviously understand it's a changing world, and as technology gets implemented, which is because of a variety of factors, obviously there are some things that will have to change in the process of that. But very, very interesting. We'll get into that extended conversation in just a moment. But thank you, Capture the Magic, for joining us here. Chris Dickerson right there saying, I'm the Wheel Watcher. Yes, you are a Sky Watcher, indeed. Wheel Watcher, Wheel Watcher. Yes, it's a song. I see. Well, there you go. You can join in on the fun right there. Thank you so much for that. I don't see a problem. Your phones scan your faces like 1,000 times a day already. Yes, indeed. That is very, very true. And how that information is actually being used, obviously, it comes down to maybe who provides those phone services, like Samsung, Android, Apple, and all of that, right? It's a big question. And so as we give out more of our personal information to these effectively corporations, right? As we give out more of our, fingerprint status, for example, or face print, or our biometric data to these corporations and so forth, I think it's kind of like, man, how are they actually going to use this data? How are they actually going to use these services? How are our lives changed because of that? And what are the potential consequences from actually having this happen right here? Can we actually have ownership of some of these things, and how our data is actually being used? There are a number of laws on the books in actually both respective states where Disney operates their theme parks, both in Florida and in California. And I will say the comparisons between the two states is really fascinating. We have seen a rollout, actually, of I'm going to go ahead and put this up on screen right here as I continue this conversation, because hey, you know what? It's always nice to look at the parks while doing that. It's a really interesting thing, because in Florida, we have seen facial recognition technology used in various ways, maybe not so much at Disney, certainly at Universal, right? And we just talked about how facial recognition was going to be part of maybe the system that Universal is putting, or has put in place, because of how Epic Universe has been constructed, but is activating, right, as part of that theme park experience where you might have certain sections of that theme park, those various portals right there, segmented off from others for a variety of reasons. Universal's saying, well, if we have capacity constraints or limitations, then maybe we can go ahead and invoke some of these facial recognition technologies in order to prevent people from overwhelming one portal or another. We've also speculated as well how they might be able to open up Celestial Park, right? Open up Celestial Park to the extended guests. People maybe who haven't necessarily paid to go to Epic Universe that day could get access to Celestial Park after a certain time. We've talked about that before. And I guess maybe in the corporate sense, getting back to that discussion right there, if corporations actually buy out certain portals, maybe you get segmented there as well, and facial recognition becomes a big part of that process, no matter which way you go for Epic Universe. And we also know that it extends beyond just Epic, right? At least in Universal Studios, we've seen facial recognition technology make its way to Islands of Adventure, to Universal Studios Florida. Now with Epic Universe, they have your profile on tap right there, and combined with that patent that Universal has, now you're starting to create this profile of every single guest that actually comes in your park, and you can maybe track their habits, right? Maybe you can track their behavior. Anything's out of line, like for example, maybe you have some drunken disorderly conduct taking place, maybe some over-serving in that instance, right? Maybe some line jumping. Now you have basically everything about them on tapped, processed by what they call machine learning, AI. And, well, you just go through that process right there. It's really interesting how these parks are utilizing this technology, and this is just what we know of. This is all in public records, public documents, and so forth. And there's some speculation as to how they might use certain things, but a lot of this is on file. So who the heck knows what they're dreaming up for tomorrow's guest? It's very, very fascinating. Let's see if I can go ahead and go to this LA Times article, though. Now, when I read this initially, it was available, okay? On some devices, I haven't been able to access this article. On other devices, I have. So I'm going to assume it's available to the wider audience. I'm not entirely sure, though, so I'll go ahead and be safe. I won't feature it on screen. I'll just read some passages of it, and hopefully that's okay. Hopefully I didn't break any journalistic integrity right there. Now, if it was something that was fully behind a paywall, I wouldn't feature hardly any of it, right? But in some instances, you can't access this article. Okay. Los Angeles Times. Disneyland rolls out facial recognition at park entrances. And here's how it works. This is by Hannah Fry, April 28th, 2026. Disneyland has deployed facial recognition technology at park entrances to verify tickets and prevent fraud, a trend spreading across major U.S. entertainment venues. Privacy experts caution that the technology normalizes surveillance and poses security risks. Though Disney says facial recognition is optional and data are deleted after 30 days. Most visitors opt into the technology over alternative entrances, often unaware of the policy, though some express concern, especially parents worried about the children's privacy. Indeed. There's nothing quite as identifiable as a face. Retailers use facial recognition technology to more easily nab shoplifters. Casinos have deployed it to keep card counters away. And even a popular New York City venue allegedly uses it to blackball people its millionaire owner considers adversaries. Interesting. So it comes as no surprise to many that Disneyland guests that it's now being used at the entrance to the happiest place on Earth. Quote, pretty much every other place is doing the same thing, said John Lashoffs, 73, who visits the park roughly every 6 weeks with his wife. Quote, the police, the government, they're all using facial recognition. I don't think it's going to stop. Photographs of a guest's face taken at the entrance to Disneyland and California Adventure are run through biometric technology to convert those images into unique numerical values. The images can be compared with pictures taken when a customer first used the ticket or annual pass. Disney officials say the technology helps make entering and re-entering the park easier and prevents fraud. Rapid growth of facial recognition over the last decade has raised concerns among privacy experts who caution that such data can easily be turned over to law enforcement entities or make companies hacking targets. Now, look, if you're going to turn it over to government agencies, it's a little on you. Any corporation can actually do that in a variety of ways, right? People might take umbrage with that, and obviously rightfully so, but at the same time, it's kind of like, well, that's kind of the risk you take. When it comes to other things, though, it gets interesting. Normalization of facial surveillance is really problematic, said Ari Waldman, professor of law at UC Irvine. We can't go around life hiding our faces. So this isn't just next step in surveillance, it's qualitatively different. In a world of facial recognition, when people have their house, it automatically means that they're identified. When people leave their house. Venues over the last decade have increasingly begun to lean on facial recognition to speed up entry and purchases for guests, which is no good. It has a list of examples, right, that people utilize to get into like a ballpark, for example. There are some ballparks out there, you want to go to a sporting event, well, now you don't even have to have a digital ticket. It's just your face connected with maybe your tickets that you bought in advance. All these kind of technologies. And this is an interesting conversation too. It's one of the reasons why Disneyland and Universal, at least Universal Studios Hollywood that is, has been slow to adopt some of these things versus their Floridian counterparts. There's some union issues as well, but mostly it's because the privacy laws in each state are very, very different. And there are very robust consumer protections in place to keep what they call SPI. It's basically like personal identity, right? Your own profile or your own face print and so forth. The use of recognition technology, all of that is a little bit more regulated in California, so I would probably imagine, than in Florida. So that's why you've seen this roll up. It's been slow. Now they're in the way that Disneyland's offering it right now. You have this kind of opt-out method, which is kind of it's an element of safety for the corporation, so that they're not violating any laws or they're not keeping back any of their services or products behind this facial recognition technology. They're not, making people go through this in order to engage with their services, which is probably best practice for the corporation's end of it. But it does kind of raise concern for people who do opt into it, or maybe don't know what is actually going on behind the scenes. At Disneyland on Friday, vacationers in matching t-shirts, toddlers in princess dresses, and mouse-eared parents pushing strollers made their way through security checkpoints, giving little attention to signs posted nearby notifying guests of the theme park's new facial recognition policy. Use of this technology is optional. The signs adorned with red, green, yellow, and blue Mickey Mouse silhouettes read. The majority of the lines into the theme parks use facial recognition technology. Guests who don't want to run their face through the technology can enter through a separate entrance marked with a silhouette of a head and shoulders with a slash through it. Of the dozens of lines to enter Disneyland and California Adventure, there were only 4 on Friday that didn't use facial recognition. That's the other thing, too. It's like, well, you're going to be given equal treatment in this process. You might have to wait in order to maintain your privacy. Again, something that the company is certainly pushing, right? And obviously, you're going to have to make your decisions for you and your family on your own terms. But it is very interesting how it's like, okay, yeah, maybe you aren't keeping these services back, but it doesn't mean you're going to get the same quality of service if you engage in these other lines, which, by the way, run the gambit across the Esplanade there. Guests in those lines still had their photos taken, that being the non-facial recognition lines. But the company said biometric technology wasn't used. Instead, an employee was seen manually validating tickets, which is the old way that used to happen. Facial recognition technology has long been criticized for making mistakes when identifying people, particularly people of color. That's another interesting idea. Research found that systems were less likely to accurately classify the faces of women with darker complexions, said that makeup patterns could render the technology null. There's also a risk of data breaches, experts say. So, it's not, obviously no system is impenetrable. And I think even Disney themselves have said that, which is quite fascinating. But the ways in which it could fall short, well, it might be problematic for the House of Mouse if, you really think about that last line there as provided by the LA Times. Chris Dickerson, though, coming in here with the $5. Thank you so much. With a bunch of, what is it? Skywatcher limited emojis, let's say. Right there with the sky watching. I love that. Thank you so much. Very much appreciate you, Chris Dickerson, for the 5. You make this, channel what it is through your support. Thank you so much for that. It's really fascinating. I'm evaluating what more we can get to our members. I think we can definitely give more emojis. We've got some ideas right there. I actually was talking to Tom F., who I believe is in the chat right there. We got to get a Tom F. emoji and slap it in there as well. Obviously, he's been somebody who's been very, very supportive of the channel, providing us media that we play regularly on these programs right here. So I'd be remiss if he didn't actually get his emoji. But we can go ahead and incorporate that in along with some others. Very, very cool. Thank you so much, Chris Dickerson, and keep on sky watching. Indeed. Thank you. All right, let's go ahead and get back into it. If you collect this type of data, you have to put a target on your back for people to steal it. This was a quote by Adam Schwartz here, Privacy Litigation Director at the Electronic Frontier Foundation, a nonprofit which opposes government use of facial recognition data, has advocated for strengthening laws to protect consumers when the technology is used by private businesses. Parkgoers who swarmed the entrance to Main Street on Friday morning as the cheery tune to It's a Small World played on the speakers outside the theme park seemed to pay little attention to the technology at all. Many who spoke to the Times said deciding between the more than a dozen lines to enter the theme park came down to a simple calculation. Which queue had the fewest people? Which is a calculation I'm sure that Disney's making as well. Outside California Adventure, Robert Howell, 30, was sitting near the entrance waiting for the park to open for his first visit. Howell, who is visiting from Virginia, hasn't heard about Disney deploying the technology to check in park goers until he arrived at the park that day. The idea of it made him a little uneasy. He said, it makes me a little uneasy as well, to be quite honest with you. It's a little scary because it's not quite clear how it's going to be used, Howell said. With TSA, I know there's an option that you can use to opt out, but I didn't realize that you could do it here, so I just did. That means you just went through, not thinking that you could opt out of any of this. And again, there's not a specific opt-out clause in the California provisions that regulate privacy, security, and obviously facial recognition, biometric data, and so forth. But it is very heavily implied that you provide one through your implementation right there. But that's also on the consumer to pursue that, right, and to know about it. And maybe you do have some theme parks that don't actually tell you about these things. Maybe you don't see that sign that Disney has put up right there in order to inform you that you can actually use this alternative entrance if you have privacy concerns and so forth. Really, really interesting, the implementation that we're actually seeing at Disneyland. Specifically, again, might be the most attended theme park in the world at this point. We've implemented technical, administrative, and physical security measures that are designed to protect guest information from unauthorized access, disclosure, use, and modification. From time to time, we review our security procedures to consider new technology and methods as appropriate. The notice reads, this is from Disney's own data privacy policy. Please be aware that, despite our best efforts, no security measures are perfect or impenetrable. Yeah, that's the thing when it comes to this. Maybe your data gets stored within a database. And I do believe it's stored for, I think, 30 days. Yes, they're stored. They're deleted within 30 days unless they need to be kept for legal or fraud prevention purposes. This is according to Disney's own data privacy policy right there, which, I guess we'll take their word for it. It's actually going on. Maybe there could be some way to access this data and delete it yourself, perhaps, add into legislation. But for now, just going to have to take that corporation's word for it.
Remain seated, please. Permanecer sentados, por favor.
Thank you, MJ. Very much appreciate that one. Perfect. Perfect timing as always, right there. Sandra Contreras isn't as concerned about using technology for herself, but wonders what the future implications might be for her 5-year-old daughter and infant son. Again, you're talking about a theme park that caters to families, well, at a very high rate, maybe as compared to other theme parks like Six Flags, for example. When the family recently visited the park, she felt as though she didn't have an option to opt out of the technology for her daughter. When it came to me, I just did it, she said. But when they were going to do it for her, it freaked me out just a little bit, to be honest. I mean, I felt like we had to do it, so she did it, but I think it's more concerning for children just to protect their privacy. Indeed, it is really something that I think the world is contending with, especially when there's so much of this biometric data going out there. It's like, okay, well, maybe I'm comfortable with the idea of my data being used, harvested, processed, or whatever the terminology you want to actually use for it. What about my kids? And that's why I think this is a very interesting take, right? Because, like I said, Disney didn't do this because, they were looking to speed things up out of the kindness of their hearts. They were looking for real monetary gains right here. Now, some people might say, well, they're selling it and so forth. We don't have confirmation on that yet, so I'm not going to go ahead and allege that. But obviously, there are those concerns. There's no question about it. However, just getting rid of that labor, is a reason why they might be encouraged to do this, because there is going to be some fan pushback and backlash, and LA Times is going to write an article about you. Do you take that $5 million plus that PR hit if there's not some tangible benefit on the other end, beyond just speed? I think so, and I think speed was always secondary. Now, obviously, there might be a benefit to it at a certain point. I don't even know if speed is necessarily, I don't know if this is done efficiently enough in order to really see those speed benefits. At least at this point, maybe the technology gets better. Maybe people get, wiser to how to actually use it, interact with it. I know when these turnstiles originally made their debut, you had cast members there trying to teach people how to use it, right? Previously, you just hand your ticket or admission media to the cast member, they scanned it, and they did all the work. Now, you do. So, it's all this kind of asking questions, how this is actually going to go, and so forth. But why do you endure all that headache? Why do you endure the PR hit? Why do you endure all of this? It's not just because of speed. Absolutely. Because of maximizing revenue potential through reducing your labor or your headcount and reducing those costs, which is just emblematic of Josh G. Morrow and his era, but also too now with Thomas Moslem, who is, from what I've heard, a stickler for efficiency. As we'll get to our next story here involving MagicBands, that mindset hasn't changed. In fact, it may have even gotten worse depending on the nature of those services provided right here. So I think it's a really interesting conversation. I think it's a really interesting idea that theme parks are moving in this direction, especially Disneyland, how they're implementing this facial recognition technology, taking it out of the hands of their cast members and putting it in the hands of, well, I guess machine learning, AI, whatever you want to call it. Very, very interesting indeed. I will say the fraud thing is interesting too. Disneyland had a particular problem some years ago in which people were buying 6, 7, 8 day passes, right? And why you would do this is because for every single day that you add, it gets cheaper per day, right? That's the whole value in buying multiple days at once. And for the company's end, well, obviously they have you captured for longer, so it works out for them as well. But what people were doing was they were buying maybe like a 8 day pass, right? They would use maybe 3 of those days, 4 of those days, and then resell the rest of them to somebody else. Or maybe you would have actually groups set up in which they would buy tickets in bulk, and then they would rent them out, depending on the days that they were actually used for, keep track of the days that they were used for ultimately, and then, accept them back, and then maybe rent that out the remaining days to somebody else. It was really a big issue. And that's why facial recognition at all was used. That's why they attach your face, your face print, your photo to this admission media now, even on tickets and so forth, because it is to prevent that practice from actually occurring. Will we see it and uptick in that if people figure out how to game the systems and so forth? I don't know, but it's really, really interesting stuff to see here. That is for sure. By the way, they also eliminated anything beyond, I think, a 5-day pass in order to cut down on that, which is a shame because there are a number of occasions where I'd like to be able to get a pass for a longer period of time, and you would think that with this amazing technology that Disney's implemented, they could actually provide that service. But c'est la vie. Freedom Seeker coming in here, an Australian being a stickler for efficiency. I've never heard of such a thing, Vash. Yes, indeed. Is he Australian? I think it was French for some reason. Anyway, maybe it makes sense right there, right? Thomas Muslim, certainly a stickler for efficiency, and whether it's somebody who's French or Australian, I don't know, but I'm not necessarily surprised by that. Well, is my computer giving me issues? It would appear so. We're just going to keep moving on, though. Sorry about the background noise right there. Hopefully it's not too bad. It was all going so well, and then it just decided to, fight back on me. Dang it. Dang it, Josh. Now we can't say dang it, Bob anymore. We got to say dang it, Josh now. Let's see. Right here. Let's see. Big School right here. Since it has been a low church society, this will have to come to pass. It's turbulent time when nothing was sacred. Sticking words is somewhat dubious itself. Yeah, this is very interesting, this high trust society concept right here. If you've not been alerted to it, think of like we see all these stories in Japan, right? Where you walk into like an Apple store and so forth, and you see that, hey, a lot of those devices that they have available out there, well, guess what? They don't have lockdown or tie-down points or anything like that in order to prevent people from actually pilfering those devices, right? They're just out there. Just walk up and just use one. And I suppose if you wanted to walk away with one, I guess you can. I would not, obviously, endorse that at all. And also, too, even if you were to do that, right, there are safeties in place in which you would prevent access to the phone anyway. It's not worth it in any case. But in a place like Japan, right, in which you have this kind of monoculture, right, in terms of how they conduct themselves, behavior, and so forth. You do have this kind of higher trust society in which you can implement things like Apple Store devices being just out there, right? In a way that maybe you can't in other places around the world. And, at least in the United States anyway, you do have this kind of, maybe if you're looking at the trust scale, maybe it's on the other side of the equation. Or not on the complete other side, but closer to that other side than high trust. And there are, safeties that have to be put in place because of that. And we're seeing that maybe in like grocery stores, for example, when you go to maybe buy something that's locked behind a box. It's like, well, what's going on there? Well, obviously they've had problems with it. And so these corporations are coming up with ways in order to prevent that fraud and so forth. And well, it's everything that we have to deal with. Oh, Austrian. Yes. Freedom Seeker coming in here. Thank you so much for that. Austrian, not Australian. Yes. You know what? You're right. Austrian. Man, I read that fast. Freedom Seeker with $2. Thank you so much. By the way, you never have to give in order to correct me. By the way, feel free to correct me in the chat with no charge. Don't worry, I'm open to it. But thank you so much for that. Austrian, not Australian. Yeah, okay, he might be Austrian. That makes now a whole ton of sense right there. Thank you so much for the $2. By the way, very, very good stuff indeed. Just curious, what information could they sell with facial recognition that they can't already sell? Well, it's just one more point of data, right? I mean, one could only imagine what actually could be used with a face print, right? That necessarily gives people access to various accounts and so forth and all of that. It's sky's the limit, basically. And for people who are concerned about how that data is actually used afterwards and so forth, you are kind of trusting whatever corporation that you engage with for their products or services, that they actually do the right thing with your data. So, who knows? Who knows if they are selling it? Again, it's not an allegation I'll make here, but there are those concerns out there for sure. Thanks so much, Michael Ray, by the way, for joining us today. Very much appreciate that. Oh, I don't mind. Well, Freedom Seeker, thank you. Very much appreciate that. Austrian. Read it fast. But Austrian makes sense. Indeed. Well, that just about does it for, I believe, facial recognition right there. It's a very interesting discussion, but of course there are many other stories that we have to bring up. I did want to give that some time, however, because I thought it was appropriate to do that. We have, let me see right here, I'm just pulling up the next story for us to enjoy on this amazing theme park day. We have a very interesting story that a lot of people aren't talking about. This one was particularly fascinating because, it's something that so many people own, or do they? That is the MagicBand situation going on currently right now. So let's go ahead and bring this up right now. Scott Gooston, MagicBand Plus products appear to be on their way out at Disneyland. They're currently available at just 3 locations. And from what I understand, the resort is expected to sell through its remaining inventory with no additional shipments expected. How very, very interesting how they tried this rollout, right, of MagicBand Plus to Disneyland. Spent a considerable time and effort to implement this technology for Disneyland. It might be going away, but is it going away entirely? Well, it might be. Let's see if we can go ahead and suss this out. Scott Gooston continues right here. This won't have any immediate impact on MagicBand Plus interactives around the resort. You can still check purchase locations in the Disneyland app, and MagicBand Plus remains available on DisneyStore.com. Indeed, very important. Mickey Visit, though, has a lot of information on this. Let's go ahead and read this article. Disneyland quietly reducing offering that was meant to revolutionize the guest experience. This is by Gavin Doyle here, April 26, 2026. Disneyland uses a variety of technologies in its theme parks, like facial recognition. In recent years, they attempted an overhaul to deliver a wearable product that could function as both a tool to enable tech in the parks and a toy. Now, Disney seems to be quietly scaling back on the availability of these products after recent comments from the head of theme parks about the future plans for investment. For guests who visit both Disneyland and Walt Disney World, this product is utilized very differently at the 2 resorts and has specific limitations for the latter. But there is a good reason for this. We now have clarity on how Disneyland will approach this in the future. Disneyland has recently been looking ahead at improvements in operations and guest experience, including the reduction of phone use in the parks, as has been touted by Thomas Mauslam, who, by the way, he did that when he was the head of Disneyland, now no longer there. Now he's obviously the head of the entire experiences division. That includes Disneyland, Walt Disney World, Cruise Line, and otherwise. And the broader implementation of the new park entry technology following a recent test. We just covered that just now. Mickey Visit brings you the latest Disney news and planning. Let's see right here. Disney first announced Magic Bands for Walt Disney World in 2013 as a tool that would connect the entire vacation experience together. Yes, this is what Culture Casino, he regularly brings up, right? This kind of next generation initiative that Disney actually had around this time. And the idea was we're going to revolutionize the park experience. We have this technology that people can engage with via these magic bands, which I believe Disney executives saw at the Great Wolf Lodge, if I'm not mistaken. They saw it used there and it was like, ooh, that's an idea. And they did do a lot of data. And they showed that, okay, if you attach your wallet to one of these bands, is it something in which you can actually increase revenue on the back end? They saw in their data that there was inhibitions with people taking out their wallet constantly. They thought more about the money they were spending when they did that action. So putting on a band, it was like, hey, we alleviate those things. Let's go ahead and invest big league in this technology to the tune of, I believe, $1 billion. That next gen initiative cost right there. And MagicBand was a big part of that new process. They promised that the wearable band would bring your hotel room key, payments, access to FastPass photos, and more all onto your wrist. It was set to revolutionize the vacation experience. Over the years, they did deliver on the promises of the MagicBand at Walt Disney World, but Disneyland has always been a different story. At the same time, they announced the ban for Florida. There were mentions in the press that MagicBand would roll out at Disneyland in 2014. A leadership change and a more costly than expected rollout in Florida caused Disneyland not to roll out the MagicBands at that time. Remember, they spent well over $1 billion trying to implement this technology into Walt Disney World. And yes, a lot of Walt Disney World actually benefits from that technology, even if it's not specifically MagicBand related. But still, it was a massive investment, and it was a kind of a black eye on the management at the time. And from Culture Casino's standpoint, he suggests that maybe that did Tom Staggs in, who was the head of the parks division at the time. You'll remember at the time this was actually all taking place, Jay Rasulo, who was the previous head of parks, was switched out with Tom Staggs, who I believe was the CFO at the time. I'm not mistaken right there. Wow, that's quite something right there. But Tom Staggs took that role over, and I actually feel that Tom Staggs was quite the executive right there. But one of the issues is he kind of inherited problems from Rasulo, in which they were basically going with the lowest bidder when it came to IT implementation. And well, you can really imagine what actually happened after that. But MagicBands as a concept, though, was something, at least at Walt Disney World, that was seen well by guests. It didn't have 100% adoption, as we'll point out right here, but because they actually gave you MagicBands upon your vacation, you're booking at a hotel on Disney property, well, the adoption was very, very quick. That's why Disney Tech is so trash. Yes, Mr. Blue Sky, it is. That is exactly why Disney IT is terrible, because the foundation by which they started out with this was not good. I remember a story about they had a group of programmers doing stuff with MagicBands, and obviously, MagicBands gave you access to your hotel and also your theme park admission and all of that. But when they were programming it, they didn't factor in concierge lounges, for example, right? Because with your previous, room key, you could actually use it, scan into your concierge lounge, which you have access to, but maybe people who aren't on the concierge level don't, right? You need that kind of different access point right there. And those programmers were like, what's concierge? It's like, wow, this is amazing. You also heard some stories about MagicBand in the initial the rollout, where I believe it works via RFID, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think it's NFC. I think it's RFID. Anyway, the sensors by which pick up that RFID signal were a little bit too sensitive. And so what would happen is people would they'd be like, okay, let's go ahead and charge this to my MagicBand, this purchase that I'm making. Let's say it's a shop in the Emporium, right? And they're purchasing a $5 item. The person next to them might be purchasing, I don't know, a $250 item or assemblage of items that cost that much. Okay, fair enough. Well, what happens when the other band is scanned for that purchase? Uh-oh, that's no good. And that would happen a little bit right there. But outside of those initial tech issues, excuse me, I do apologize. Outside of those initial tech issues, the implementation of MagicBand from the consumer's end was actually viewed very, very strongly, and was viewed as a benefit to actually visiting the Walt Disney World Resort, which is good. But again, though, Disneyland was very slow to roll it out because of all those problems they had initially and a lot of those costs associated with MagicBand 1.0. Excuse me, let me go ahead and wet the whistle right here. MJ.
And so what we've tried to do is really bring that shape language from the architecture, but What we love to talk about at WDI is shape language. And we often refer to shape language.
There's such iconic shape language in Spaceship Reverie Attraction. We really wanted to make sure that we fused to that throughout the space.
That's amazing. I didn't know we actually had people from Disney's IT department to really to come in and comment on the story. That's fascinating. Oh, wait, no, it's not IT. That's Imagineering? Oh, boy. That's... Ooh. You know, and people wonder what's going on right now. Okay, let's see right here. A leadership change and a more costly than expected rollout in Florida caused Disneyland to not roll out Magic Bands at that time, just back in 2013. It wasn't until after the 2020 park closures that Magic Band Plus, the premium version of Magic Bands, was launched in California in 2022. This was also a big initiative by Bob Chapek, I will say. Chapek really believed that technology and technology rollout was a big point that they should be focusing on. In fact, a lot of the implementation of technology when it came to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, for Disneyland specifically, was to showcase the idea how technology could revolutionize the guest experience. And his idea was, okay, if Star Wars Galaxy's Edge really is very successful, especially with its approach to technology, and I could show people that, hey, this is going to be a great showcase to continue on. You could necessarily make the argument to upper management, even above Chapek at the time. Remember, he was started off at the Park Experiences division. Well, didn't start off, but he was there. Anyway, he was thinking, okay, well, I can go ahead and make the case to Burbank that we should invest in this technology park-wide or resort-wide, especially when it came to Disneyland Resort. If Star Wars Galaxy's Edge opened up with that technology in a limited use case and say, okay, hey, this is going to be really good to go. Unfortunately, that didn't quite happen, but it was kind of a moot point anyway because, well, he was a CEO by 2020, and that's why it took until 2022 to get all of that done. The key news from today: in the past few weeks, we have received reports of Disneyland scaling back the availability of Magic Band Plus bands in stores at the resort. We also recently heard about the future of the offering from the president of Disneyland, who soon after this business update became, well, the chairman of Disney Experiences, that being Thomas Moslem. We went to the Main Street Emporium and World of Disney to check on the availability of Magic Band Plus. When I asked the cast members at both stores, they said that the designs were extremely limited right now, and they have been that way since at least the beginning of April of 2026. Not good. In the Emporium, they only had one Magic Band Plus in the entire store, and it was on a spinning display tucked away from everything else. It was a Magic Band Plus themed to Scarlet Witch from the Avengers. Wow, who remembers that? What an incredible time in Disney theme park history. In the world of Disney, there were 2 Magic Band Plus designs available. In addition to the Scarlet Witch design, they also had a design with Jafar and Jasmine from Aladdin. Color coding system showing how much the different designs cost was still in place, even though they didn't have really the inventory to justify the color coding system in that regard. Which, by the way, the color coding system, small rant here, okay? This whole idea, you can see it in the background of this photo right here, but this whole idea of, we're not going to place the price tags on the actual products, we're just going to give them a color code, and you have to match up with this chart right here, what this product actually costs, which, by the way, I'm sure they can change the whim. It's so frustrating, by the way. Just give us price tags. Just give us price tags. Or a way to scan it so we can actually find out what the price of this stuff is. So frustrating. Anyway, sorry about that.
Is that like a personal attack or something?
You know what? In this case, yes. And even my computer is mad. Look at it. Look at it right now. It's red. It's red because of the rage attached to stuff like this. Anyway, it's just a personal frustration of mine. When I reached out to Disneyland for a comment on the merchandise availability, they shared that they are always evaluating the location and availability of merchandise based on a variety of factors. I'm sure they are, but that's not really the answer to the question they were asking. This includes Magic Band Plus. Guests can use the Disneyland app to see where they can still purchase Magic Band Plus and continue to purchase it on the Disney Store website. Separately from the availability of the product offering, however, we got an update on the Magic Bands generally at Disneyland during a recent business update, where about a dozen media were in attendance. This event was in dialogue with Thomas Moslem. Remember, this is that big media summit that they had over there at California Adventure, which was, by the way, to celebrate the park's 25th anniversary, disguised as, hey, this is a I would say come to Jesus, but in this case I will say come to Walt moment, in which it's like, you know what? There are things we can improve on. Here's how. Which, by the way, I gave Thomas Moslem a lot of credit. And I also said at the time, if you're making a case to be the next Experiences chairman, this is that case. And sure enough, he was promoted soon after. So there you go. Which, by the way, we were the only ones at Vash Sky ParkCast that covered that. Okay, maybe Orange Go 55 and maybe Jared, maybe some others did. But, I mean, there were some others that I brought that story to. You know, it was really interesting how that all shaped out. But we were the ones covering it for you at home. So that is cool that we got that right, because we keep referring back to this moment here. At the time, he was the president of Disneyland, and he was recently promoted to the chairman of Disney Experiences, overseeing all of the theme parks, including Disneyland. In addition to sharing a general focus on improving cast member hospitality and ride closure time for maintenance, he shared thoughts on a number of other topics. One of the other reporters in attendance asked Moslem when we would be able to use a MagicBand at Disneyland the same way that we could at Walt Disney World to do things like open a hotel room door. The reporter said that in Orlando, the MagicBand is a useful tool, and at Disneyland, it is an interesting toy, which they're not wrong. A Disney executive moderating the conversation chimed in to say that they agree with the second half of the statement before Moslem shared his thoughts. Note that I am only able to paraphrase from the conversation and not provide direct quotes. Yeah, they didn't allow any recording devices there. Moslem shared that he was responsible for all of the Disney Resort hotel rooms in Orlando before he ran Disney Cruise Line, which is indeed true. We covered Thomas Moslem's career, actually, when we were covering the list of candidates that could be chosen for the Experiences division, and when he was actually provided that upgrade or promotion, we covered that history of him as well. He said the majority of people using MagicBands at Walt Disney World are staying at the resorts. At Walt Disney World, there's a massive number of hotel rooms. He said that there are something like as many hotel rooms at Walt Disney World as there are in an entire city of Washington, D.C., which is an astounding figure. I believe it's up to like 45,000 hotel rooms if you include DVCs and everything like that. A tool like the MagicBand has a real need there. One of the key things that stood out to him at Disneyland when coming into leading that resort was the realization of how different guests at Disneyland are when compared to Walt Disney World. The way that he worded it seemed to emphasize to me that he realized just how many more guests were staying off property than on property at a Disneyland-owned hotel. Indeed. Okay. At Walt Disney World, like I said, there's 45,000 hotel rooms or something like that. And when you talk about the demographic breakdown of the people that visit Walt Disney World, I would be very surprised if 20 to 25% of those were annual pass holders. It's significant, but not nearly as significant as, and honestly, that figure is probably 10, 15% now. But at Disneyland, right? And this was a stat that I heard years ago. It's probably more now, but at least 75% of the annual attendance at Disneyland is provided for by people within 250 miles of that location, right? It's all annual pass holders, basically. Or at least it's all repeat visitors, right? You do get international visitation, at least to some degree, very small, but it does happen. But it's basically the world's most popular regional theme park. That's what it is. And do you necessarily need a MagicBand if, in fact, one of the big benefits of having something like this is room access? I don't know. I mean, maybe. It does allow you interest in the theme park. So that's good. And if you have your face print on file, I guess, it can be looked up that way. It does allow you access onto attractions when using the Lightning Lane. So that's not too bad as well. But those all aren't necessarily it's just not necessarily as functional as what's going on at Walt Disney World, where not only can you access, you can use it to as your room key, but I believe you can actually, connect your credit card with it as well and actually make purchases, which is a very big benefit to those out there at Walt Disney World over Disneyland that obviously don't have that option available to them. Let's see right here if we can get some B-roll while I talk right here. Do apologize. I'd like to have something on the screen in order to provide you a little bit of visualization as we go through this. But Go and Shogi coming out on in here with the DLR still has enough rooms to provide that perk. I do agree. I think when you look at the level of adoption, right? If you're going to provide a service or whatever, and like hotel rooms are all connected anyway to your electronic system, doesn't necessarily take that much to add the MagicBand functionality to that. I don't think so. From what I can make of this, and we'll go into it on this article because I think it also details this. There are maybe additional costs associated with providing MagicBand that I think Thomas Muslim is evaluating currently right now and saying, okay, well, if it's only going to be for this percentage of guests, right? If we have adoption that is so low, then could we necessarily take those, efficiencies or resources and apply them somewhere else? It's an interesting idea, and one that I'm sure they are evaluating right now, as we'll make note of here in this article. Now, this is hardcore. I'm on a table donating plasma, watching the show. Wow, that's amazing. John, that's incredible. Thank you so much for watching us while you do such an amazing act right there. Thank you for that. And hey, you know what? I'd like to go ahead and provide the best content possible, and hopefully, of all your choices, hopefully it was the best one right there. Go and Shogi. Now it's too late. They fumbled it when they have caught on. They could have caught on. Yes, I do agree. Though they fumbled a lot of things, no question about that. But honestly, Disneyland should have probably double the amount of hotel rooms that they have now. That would be one way to provide the reasons necessary to implement such a service like this. Disneyland Resort, in terms of its lodging and hospitality, is way underbuilt. Has been for a while. In fact, when Cars Land was being built, and in time for its opening in 2012, if I'm not mistaken, right there. During that time, a lot of theme park executives believed that, look, we should have a hotel room or a hotel tower at least that's built alongside to coincide with the opening of Cars Land. That way we have hotel room inventory provided for people who are wanting to experience the new offerings that we have for DCA 2.0. That didn't happen. Why? It's just a lot of short-term decisions leading to long-term losses. Not necessarily, losses as in terms of increased costs. But what I'm saying is the revenue potential simply isn't there because you didn't invest in it before. So there you go. Give me just 1 second right here. I'm going to go ahead and look something up right now because I think still under 3,000 rooms though, Mr. Blue Sky. I do have the room count that I calculated a little while ago with the accurate room count for the Disneyland Resort down to the room. So let me see if I can actually find that right now. And I'll tell you exactly how many rooms are there. Yes, under 3,000, 2,863 precisely between Disneyland Hotel, the villas at Disneyland Hotel, that new DVC tower there, Grand Californian, and Pixar Place. There you go, right there. So yeah, under 3,000. So it's kind of like, well, do you offer this entire service in which the best perk is limited to that many people? Maybe you don't, as we'll detail on right here, because we actually have numbers as well. Capture the Magic, his comments on phone usage was interesting too. Yes, indeed. There is something. Before getting back to this article, I want to go ahead and bring up Jared's point right here because it's really profound. Okay, There is something called phone fatigue that exists within the halls of Team Disney Anaheim and Team Disney Orlando, the management units that manage the parks on their respective coasts. Okay. They do say phone fatigue. They've used that term for a while. And I guess this phone fatigue is one of the reasons why they've diminished this kind of mobile checkout option that they used to have at their various like larger stores or retail options provided in the parks themselves. So like Emporium, for example, was a big one in which they had mobile checkout, right? They've diminished that. Now, it might exist in some capacity at Walt Disney World, but Disneyland, they really cut back on that. Why? Because people simply don't opt in for the services if they are forced to with others, like Lightning Lane. In fact, the meeting that I saw of the Disney executives talking about this, actually, you know, they referred to Genie Plus by name, and they said, yeah, it was an inhibition to adoption of some of our offerings that we have, like mobile checkout, and also too for reservations at big restaurants. People were actually opting not to reserve or manage restaurant reservations via their phones, or even at all, because the phone would be the main way that it is actually conducted, because they were already using their phone so heavily when it came to Genie Plus and all of that. It was really, really interesting, really fascinating. That's been a concept for a while. I believe 3 or 4 years, at least that I have seen, right, from Disney. And I guess Thomas Muslim is really big about the numbers. He's really big about the efficiencies and whether or not they're leveraging that appropriately. I'll go ahead and read on and keep the video playing right there because you get it. He said that actually most Disney theme parks around the world, this is Mickey Visit again, are more like Disneyland than Walt Disney World. And that is true, because Walt Disney World is a vacation destination. Disneyland, like I said, is the world's most famous regional theme park, but it is a regional theme park like Paris, like Tokyo, and otherwise. He said that Walt Disney World is the outlier because of the size of the resort. The consumers use the different destinations very differently. This is reflected in how MagicBand should be built out at the resorts. Again, to me, that is him saying that Walt Disney World is the one Disney destination around the world where a majority of visitors to the theme parks are staying at Disney-owned hotels. And that is indeed true. Muslim then framed his approach to MagicBands at Disneyland. He said that they consider how many guests they are impacting when spending money and time on a project to improve the guest experience. He said that at Walt Disney World, MagicBands were used by 55% or so of the population. These are the guests staying on property. At Disneyland, fewer than 7% of guests stay on property. And he expressed a question of, do we want to be spending money that impacts 7% of guests, or make improvements that will benefit 100% of guests? This is interesting. This is, I think, a level of openness that we've not heard from pretty much any Disney executive, right? Providing us these numbers and providing us their thought processing on what goes in and what goes into their decision making. So this idea of rounding out MagicBand, it's not just, well, sales are down, and why provide this product here when we can provide it other places, which would be, I think, my natural instinct and conclusion. He's saying, no, there are additional things that we have to factor in when it comes to costs related to that system. Why dedicate that or those costs to things that impact 7% of the guest population when we could do something that impacts 100%? Honestly, not a bad calculation. And that's the whole crux of this whole thing, right? MagicBand, as a concept, really, many executives looked at that as a stepping stone, or this kind of this place that got you from here to there for cell phones. Okay, so when they were considering implementing the technologies that would be related to MagicBand in its initial days, the initial thought process was, well, we can do that on phones. The problem was, back in 2013, smartphone adoption wasn't nearly as prolific as it is today. Not everybody had one. And so it was like, okay, well, we're going to keep a number of these features and services behind the use of cell phones. I don't think that makes much sense. We need this kind of in-between platform. This platform to bridge the gap between adoption as we currently see it and the adoption that will eventually come. That's the whole crux of MagicBand. That's why it was implemented really in the first place, and why it was approved and why it was rolled out. It was that kind of in-between thing. Now, it became a merchandise opportunity, which, Pop JPEG, I'm sure was definitely excited about that, and why they may have rolled out something like that at Disneyland, right? Seeing those that merchandise potential right there, as coming from previously consumer products before he was even brought over to the parks or the CEO ship. Makes sense. But at its core, right, it is this thing that could be, in fact, facilitated by cell phones alone. And so when it comes to a park mix at Disneyland, which happens to be just a little bit more savvy, just because they visit the parks a little bit more frequently, it's kind of like, you can do a lot of the stuff on your phone. Let's just do the phone, and do it that way. I know there's been some conversations about near field communication. There are some issues related to that, though. Not every single person has that even activated on their phone, if you have that option at all. And when they do have it activated, obviously there are security checks that you have to do and all that kind of stuff. Whereas MagicBand, it's just Disney provided services. It's a closed system. It's much easier to provide those services via that method. But you can obviously see through the trajectory of this technology why they want to say, you know what, Disneyland doesn't really make sense. And honestly, I think at a certain point it might not make sense for Walt Disney World either. But they're definitely seeming to making this. They're definitely making that decision here for Disneyland in particular. He seemed to be saying that he wanted to focus on guest experience improvements that are most relevant to all Disneyland guests. And he said that the offering is great in Orlando, and that he really depended on the offering while running the resorts. Now, though, at Disneyland, would it be better to use that same money to develop new features for guests through other investments? Indeed. That's what's going on right here. So we are seeing, I think, the conclusion of MagicBands at Disneyland, at least, this big push, which I remember when they pushed MagicBand Plus finally at Disneyland. It was a big marketing push. I mean, you had racks and racks of these different MagicBands, all these different options or chargers and everything else that just took up just all kinds of floor space. And now it's I don't think it's going to be a thing. It's very interesting what the company commits itself to at the time they commit to it, and seeing what flourishes and seeing the things that just flame out. And I think for Disneyland, it was always an uphill battle. It was just always something that was going to see low adoption, not just because of the limited amount of services as compared, but it's just a different culture at the end of the day, and culture trumps code every time. Let's see. When MagicBand Plus rolled out at Disneyland in 2022, the offering felt like it was the beginning of a bigger rollout that never happened after the bands weren't immediately popular. In that 2022 article, we shared that, quote, initially tap to pay and hotel entry access for Disneyland hotel guests won't be available, but that will be added at a later date. That addition never came. And based on the recent comments from Muslim, sounds like they are not a priority for the future. New management's in. They're making decisions. They're making assessments on how to better improve the guest experience, maybe their own bottom lines, and they're going to make those decisions regardless of what promises were made by former management. Does that mean that promised 11 p.m. transfer time that apparently was going away as announced as part of this meetup with Thomas Muslim back in February of this year? Remember, he said, hey, if you have a park hopper and you want to go ahead and book Disneyland or California Adventure, you can go to the other park at any time, coming soon, and we won't have this kind of 11 p.m. limitation, or 11 a.m. I should say limitation. Sorry, 11 p.m. 11 a.m. limitation, in which you had to wait for that time, and then you can actually hop over. Get rid of that. That hasn't actually been done. So will, I think, Jill, who's now the head of Disneyland, will she actually continue that? I don't know. But Disney makes a lot of promises that maybe they don't necessarily fulfill for one reason or another. I see Wolful out there in the chat. Hey, thank you so much for coming on in. Very much appreciate you. Let's see. Freedom Seeker, I was not on my nearly as much at Universal as I am at Disney. Yeah, well, Universal is coming up right there. Very, very interesting to see what's going on at FanFest Nights, which, by the way, we had this conversation on Black Park Place, and I thought it was very, very interesting talking about Star Wars, right? And we can show a little bit of that, I think. I want to have an exciting discussion. If, in fact, we have our guest come on, I definitely want to continue that discussion with him. But let's see right here. This Star Wars night, yesterday was the first day for these new characters to be part of that event. And we covered that a little bit on that Park Place, but you can see right here this footage from Five Fires of that event right there. I think the main takeaway here is that the characters do look better than what maybe we saw them in those promotional images initially. However, there are still maybe some lingering problems right there, but at least in terms of fan reaction, it's much, much higher than what we have recently seen with like Kylo Ren and Rey and all of that kind of stuff, so that's good. But when examining this stuff, right, I wasn't able to bring it up, but it is indeed difficult to get characters that embody, or to get actors, I should say, that embody these characters. There's no question about that. But what FanFest has been doing, especially with some of the Jurassic Park stuff, that Ian Malcolm, it's like Jeff Goldblum came to life right in front of you. And embodied that character that he did in the 1990s. It is wild how spot on those actors were. And honestly, for FanFest, at least 2025, it was very impressive seeing people embody the roles of Marty McFly and Doc and all of those different characters from Back to the Future. You can do these things. It just depends on how much Disney's going to actually pay and how much, how far they're going to go to pursue actors that really embody these characters to an insane degree, because Universal has shown they can if they have the courage to pursue it, I suppose. Let's see. Leia doesn't look too bad in that video. Yeah, I think she looks a little bit better. That might be a different actress than what we saw, but I think she is improved. I still have problems with that costume. But Han Solo has, basically his Empire Strikes Back outfit on in its entirety, so that's good. You also have a number of different things actually happening. I'll show you this cool thing, and then I'm going to go ahead and get on to our next story. We'll come back to this, folks. Don't even worry about that. Trust me, we will. I just want to go ahead and ensure that if we're going to have this discussion, we have somebody who is as passionate as I am about this stuff. But here you go. Here's a little tease from laughingplace.com. C-3PO is out there making the rounds as part of Star Wars Night. That's really cool. That is awesome. Oh my goodness. We have seen C-3PO in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge before at Disneyland, but it's always a treat to have him out there. That costume is really, really difficult to not only get into and wear, but also to be in for an extended period of time, which is why you don't usually see C-3PO out there. So it's really, really cool when you do have them. Should have been part of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge from the very beginning, and should still remain there even after Star Wars Night, but now you know why he might not be featured in any other place. But it's really, really cool to see him there. That's awesome. Awesome stuff. I love that. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get back to the Star Wars conversation in just a moment. But first, we have a number of stories that we have to continue on with and digest as part of this amazing cornucopia of theme park news that has come our way in recent days. There's a smaller story here I'm not going to spend too long on it, but I wanted to go ahead and bring it to your attention anyway, because we are getting, let's see, obviously there are alterations taking place, a lot of them actually, in various areas of Walt Disney World, things that have closed forever, which is no good, but also things that are changing in one way or another, like Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. It is going through, I think, a year closure right there. And a lot of people have been anticipating that attraction to open up, which, it's been beloved ever since it actually went in there. Like very early 1980s for Walt Disney World. But the landscape around it will be changing considerably. Let's see if I can find it here. I had it in my notes. I know I had a link to it. Sorry, guys. There you go. From Blog Mickey. Massive walls under construction to block views of nearby projects from Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. You can see right there, some big walls going up. And that's no good. Because if you remember Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, it was designed in such a way to give you these wondrous vistas, right? These wondrous, these amazing views into all sides of Rivers of America, while also, too, hiding away the backstage areas on the other side of Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. Unfortunately, now, it looks like your view is going to be obstructed, at least for a while. During a visit to Magic Kingdom this morning, we got our first on-the-ground look at the massive construction walls that will block views of Piston Peak National Park and Villains Lane construction from Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. Now, they are saying construction. Hopefully, these aren't permanent. There you go. These are certainly not your average construction walls. Instead, these construction walls are being created with tall steel support columns. And here's a closer look at the progress and how long we expect these walls to be in place. They basically said it at the outset, right? They expect, these to take place during the entire construction period, which could be 2029, could be 2030. Make your best guess on that, I suppose. But here you go. Here's what that kind of wall looks like from a distance right there. We saw that close-up shot earlier. We also see some aerial photography as provided by the amazing BioReconstruct. You can see right here what this kind of looks like. It's kind of hard to see in this photo, but you can see these walls and where they actually stretch out right there. There were some awesome views that you can actually take in for Rivers of America on Big Thunder Mountain Railroad at Walt Disney World. It was really, really cool. It was really something that Disneyland doesn't really have. Disneyland's kind of surrounded on all sides, either by pathway, Star Wars Galaxy's Edge in the back, and you have some Fantasyland facades that are cut off by trees and so forth. So you don't really get those amazing, astounding views that you did at Big Thunder at Walt Disney World. Unfortunately, we're going to have a little bit less of that because of this construction right here, which is no good. You can see right here some additional photos, but I believe he has some video, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see if I can find that in terms of my notes. Yes. There you go. There's some BioReconstruct right here. Not drones, helicopter footage, by the way. Yeah. Oh, boy. It's just something right there. Yeah. And then you can see the walls right there. It's a little bit hard to see because the corner of this frame right here, but you can see roughly where those walls will come in to segment Big Thunder Mountain off away from this construction. And I hope this is all worth it. I don't know, guys. I look at this and I'm just like, there's so many operational issues that come from doing something like this. This is really the heart of this theme park. So many things radiate from it. It's crazy. Let's see right here. You can kind of see a distance shot of that, which we have seen multiple times right here. But yeah, we have those walls coming into place. Now, I will say about these walls here, this obviously by WW Magic, but obviously hosting BioReconstruct's amazing imagery right here. These walls had a lot of people that came out, that spoke out about the walls surrounding Curse of the Royal Wolf at Epic Universe. Okay, a lot of people were like, oh, they were outraged at the knitting and so forth, and I do agree, it doesn't look all that great. I just hope that that the people who criticize those moves share that same enthusiasm when it comes to Big Thunder Mountain Railroad, that might get something even more obstructive than what you actually see at Curse of the Werewolf at Epic Universe. I hope. I hope they come out with that same amount of energy right there. I hope they do. I hope they do all that, but I'm not sure if we actually will see that. I just find it very interesting. The sticking points that some theme park enthusiasts have when it comes to these various attractions. I want to go ahead and share that with you. It's no good. The Rivers of America stuff is tough because it was just an amazing part of this park, really. It was such an amazing part of Magic Kingdom, and it was awesome to experience. It's just kind of hard to go over those stories constantly over and over again. So I try to, only highlight the most pertinent things involving that project. But we will see. O2RR, I don't like rain, but I don't mind rain pouring down to naturally refill the Rivers of America again. Yes, indeed, right? That was some pretty funny stuff right there. That was Walt telling you, don't do this. Let my river flow right there. But c'est la vie. The company continued on, even though they might have gotten some signs from above right there. Let's see. Is Drunk 3PO in the chat? Is he out there? Is he out there? Whoa, that is absolutely huge. Drunk 3PO, if you are out there, hey, welcome on in. Thank you so much for coming on. Which, by the way, you always have an open invite, but I understand you're busy as well. Don't even worry about that right there. But if you are here in the chat, thank you so much. And hey, man, we are all hoping that your various channels right there, as impacted by YouTube, don't continue to be. We are all hoping for the best solution out there, and we're fighting on your behalf when it comes to that kind of stuff. But thank you so much for that. That would be cool. Or maybe Chris Dickerson was just saying hi to Jay because it was C3PO, not Drunk 3PO. I don't know. I like to believe that Drunk is out there. Okay, let's see. Could have left the river and built a new attraction in the middle of the island like Paris did with Big Thunder. I think there would have been a lot less hate. Yes, absolutely. Oh, I mean, they could have done a variety of things to maintain the Rivers of America. The fact that they decided to axe it entirely really speaks to the mindset of the modern Walt Disney Company, right? They knew they were going to get pushback. Josh Giamaro knew he was going to get pushback, which, by the way, that's why he didn't say at the time that he announced these things on the floor of the Honda Center, on the stage there at, D23 Ultimate Fan Event 2024. He said, hey, Cars Land's coming to Magic Kingdom. Didn't actually tell you where, didn't actually tell you what was replacing, just said it was coming, right? And we all thought, oh, okay, this is the Beyond Big Thunder kind of concept that they showcased as part of a what if segment for 2022's version of the event. Okay, there you go. That's what's going on there. It was only after the event's conclusion did they actually tell you, oh yeah, by the way, Rivers of America, it's gone. What? Yeah. They knew. That's how they operate. I'm sure I saw him. Now you make me doubt myself. Oh, you sure you saw him? Oh, interestingly enough. Okay, well, that is fantastic. Very, very cool. Hey, if he's in here, Drunk, welcome aboard, good sir. Welcome to the Vash Sky ParkCast. Taking out Rivers of America was a big middle finger to Walt. Yes, it was. There's no question about that. For sure. It was absolutely terrible. Someday I'll go ahead and tell the story where the Matterhorn at Disneyland might be the biggest middle finger out there. Actually provided by Walt to his adversaries. Very interesting stuff. If we go into the history of Disneyland, maybe I share that on Vash and Vixen coming up right here. That would be very, very cool. Interesting. Okay. I think that just about does it for the walls around this roller coaster. Now we have to actually go to another roller coaster. And that is the one that you've all been waiting for. Muppet is Rockin' Roller Coaster? No, Rockin' Roller Coaster starring the Muppets, I believe is what the name is they're going with now. Wow. Walt Disney World is today. Rock and Roller Coaster guitar scrim removed, revealing groovy makeover. Yes, psychedelic indeed. Amanda Finn here, April 27, 2026. Although scaffolding is still in place, the scrim hiding the refurbished Rock and Roller Coaster guitar is now gone, revealing a psychedelic new color scheme. You can see some photos right here as provided by Walt Disney World News Today. You can see some before photos and obviously the after photos, which we'll get. I'll get some close zoomed in shots right here from various outlets. I believe, Blog Mickey had a lot of great imagery right here. Walt Disney World News Today, obviously, and so much more. We'll feature all of those in a collage coming up. But here's what it looked like before, and here's what it kind of roughly looks like after. There you go. Okay. We got to break this down. We got to break this down in multiple ways. So let's go ahead and get that collage going on my end right here and have this imagery playing. That way it is, you can kind of follow along visually with what we're talking about. It is astounding, the decisions actually made here, because I understand they're going with the psychedelic thing. And I understand it's Muppets, right? And Muppets are always going to be a little bit off kilter. I actually have no problem with the guitar outside of the concept art showed a little bit more red, right? As you can see right here, than the pink. I think the pink is just a little bit too much there. I think you should have done a little bit more red. And also, too, I think you should have gone with maybe like a sparkling paint job. If you've ever seen some guitars that have some sparkling paint onto them, there are some amazing, guitars out there that exhibit all kinds of amazing paint jobs to catch your eye, and are certainly associated with the psychedelic era of rock and so forth. Really, really cool stuff. They didn't do any of that. They went with the flat kind of paint, which I think is like really bizarre. Like it's reflective to some degree, but it just looks a little bit flat on camera. So let's go ahead and put this up right here. There you go. This is what it all looked like before. See right there, they went with like the tans and so forth back in the 1990s, and you can actually see in these photos how there's some gradation of those tans behind that guitar right there. And of course the guitar is the highlight there, which is why it has the kind of red paint scheme that Jim Scholl actually imbued onto it, which is really, really cool. You can see right here, this is the new stuff. You have this very, very, very dark, harsh gray. Gradations, at least on the archway right here, but it goes pretty much flat once you actually get to the building. There's one tone that they go with for the entire thing right there. And you can see the composition of all of these different elements in this various photography provided by all kinds of sources right there. Credit given to each one of them. In this case, Blog Mickey, as you can see right there. I think Ashley Carter was before right there. So, okay. The gray, I'm not actually opposed to the gray itself. I think the gray actually looks pretty cool in some instances, right? I think in the building it might be a little bit too much, but what kind of attraction are you attempting to showcase when you go with a gray like that? Is it rock and roll psychedelic with that kind of gray? I don't think so. And that's what makes this whole thing kind of bizarre to me, because if this gray was chosen for, like, I don't know, maybe like a Star Wars themed adventure or something like that, or something that was a little bit more modern in its take, maybe I would get behind this. But you can see right here what Disney had done previously when it came to the Jim Henson characters, especially as it was, depicted in this Muppets courtyard that used to exist out there at Disney's Hollywood Studios, in the same park that Rock and Roller Coaster currently resides. You can see that they went with murals, they went with colors, they went with bright stuff, they went with, all this kind of Jim Henson-inspired artwork and so forth to make up the murals that you would actually see on these various facades in that kind of mini-land that they provided back in the day. Which you would think that they would do something like that here. See right there, that's before, and we'll go ahead and get the after. Now, I believe in this image coming up right here, there was a concept put out by somebody who took the concept artwork and reworked it just a little bit for a daytime shot and provided this right here. Now I'm going to go ahead and pause it on here. This is what they could have done with something like the Rock and Roller Coaster facade as it currently exists, which we all know they aren't going to make any structural changes to it. Okay, so you have this canvas by which to work with. Now, this might be a little bit too busy. I'd tone it down a little bit, but you could have imbued it with additional color. That's the crazy thing about this. It's like you have the Electric Mayhem as part of the Muppets. You should have imbued this with color, as we saw with the Muppets Courtyard back in the day. And by the way, let's see here. Too much to keep up that paint job? Yeah, maybe. Is probably true. But they're going with something very psychedelic for the actual guitar. Why not provide a maybe expanded color palette for the rest of the show elements right here? You can see like what Electric Mayhem has been synonymous with in previous incarnations of the Muppets. You can see right here what that kind of looks like. And Alicia Stella, yeah, I've started to think a lot of you aren't familiar with Electric Mayhem. I think she might be responding to the criticisms for the guitar itself. I don't really have a problem with the guitar. There are some color choices I have maybe take issue or umbrage with, but the psychedelic thing I think is very, very appropriate. They could have actually done more, in my opinion. But it's not really about that. It's that gray in the background. Now, okay, gonna be a lot of people out there that says, okay, well, they went with the dark gray in order to highlight the guitar. That's very true. There's no question about that. I understand that was the intent behind the gray that was used on the building and so forth. The problem is now you've made it such a strong gray. It is now. You are highlighting it more than you should. I don't even think anybody really talked about the tan when it came to Rock and Roller Coaster originally. But now they're certainly talking about this gray. You've made it a character unto itself, which, if it was in keeping with an attraction that befitted this kind of color scheme, good to go. But this doesn't. You're going for like the psychedelic thing with the Muppets. Why the heck did you choose a gray? If you wanted to highlight the guitar, there are many, a myriad of colors to choose from, like a lighter gray option, for example. But they went with a very dark, harsh gray. And it's just like, guys, what are you doing? Was there any consideration at all when approaching this project right here? I mean, who actually modeled this out in their preview software and said, that's good, we're going to go ahead and go with that? What? I don't understand it. I don't understand it from a person who is trying to get behind this kind of psychedelic nature that you have for this attraction. And in the artwork that they've shown, like concept art, for example, and the artwork that they've had for like the song lists and all of that, which, by the way, we're going to cover the songs on the members only stream actually this weekend because I can't play them here. But so join us for that. But when you look at the artwork they produced for this thing, it's very psychedelic. It's very kind of, you know, hippie culture or whatever, 60s, 70s inspired. All good. Love that. But it's like, why go with the gray here for the building? I don't know. I just think I could see where they were kind of going, but then I can't get behind it. Not for the theme and the tone they're trying to provide for this attraction, which is kind of zany, wacky, Muppets inspired, right? Just doesn't feel like that on the outside. Now, the guitar, sure, represents that, and maybe the car up top, right? That's hanging off the headstock right there, which is actually a pretty clever design, as implemented by Jim Shaw and others back in the day. Okay, get behind that. There are some things where it's like, okay. But dark gray is going to be your backdrop. I don't know about that. Yes, Follow the Rats is fun. Great B-roll indeed, provided by actually you. I just kind of clipped it up together, but you did the hard work right there. Definitely give you a shout out, which, by the way, I do believe we are going to be handing it off to you after the stream has concluded, but not until the top of the hour, folks. So definitely stay tuned for everything that we have in store for you, because we have some great stories to come. This is I don't know. I just can't get behind this right here. Yeah, see this paint is kind of glossy, but it shows up flat when you actually see it in the front right there. And I don't know if I think I would have used some other techniques to highlight the psychedelic nature of what they are actually going with. There was some really great infusions of flakes and paint, and you can make it almost like a car finish and so forth. Really some really cool stuff that you could do here. I just honestly, they may not have gone far enough with the guitar, to be quite honest with you. And the backdrop, the gray, I just don't think it looks. I don't think it looks all that great. Maybe gradations of it, like we did with the tan, right? Where it started out dark, and then as you went higher, it got lightened up. Maybe you could have done that with the backdrop, and maybe it would have been a little bit less harsh. It's current incarnation. Can't get behind it, but that is just me. Nicole Williams out there, thank you so much for coming on in. Yeah, prison. Yeah, I mean, maybe, maybe if you're going to a prison in your in your hot pursuit attraction that's featured at Zootopia, maybe that's what it is. Are we sure it's not Primer? The scaffolding would still be up. That's the thing. I think that's what this is right there. You don't want your computer to overheat again. I know. It was going there for a second there. Oh, calm down. Don't worry. But yeah. I made this kind of the same assertion there, kind of in jest, but it's not Primer. I think it's the actual paint scheme. I hope it is, but I don't know if that's what they're going with, because the gradations that you see here on the archway leads me to believe that's the final paint scheme. So, there you go. Oh boy. Well,
they don't know what the f they're doing. Do you understand that?
that is actually a perfect clip to play in that situation, because that's exactly how I feel. Let's see right here. Yes. So, yeah, in terms of the guest list here, I'm getting some producing notes right now. Okay, so the lineup for the shows going forward, we'll go ahead and promote that a little bit here, and that'll give us some insight into what's actually going on. I'm hoping to have somebody at the end of this show today, but we'll see. Obviously, there are impediments to his time, and we want to go ahead and be respectful to that. Tomorrow, though, I am going to feature Barry Place 28 one way or another, whether it be live with us or maybe his just recorded thoughts, because I did connect an interview with him. Why did I connect an interview with him? Because we're going to cover tomorrow the potential end of live streaming at the Disney parks. Yes. I was hesitant to go forward with the story because I did not hear anything on my end, and usually I'm pretty in tune with this stuff. But there has been some articles as published by major news outlets insinuating that Disney might be reevaluating its live streaming policy on park property. And in order to give you and provide you guys the best coverage, I wanted to go ahead and wait just a little bit until actually cracking into that, because you'll know that here on Vash Sky ParkCast, we covered the Oblivion incident, right? We covered the incident in which there was a swatting incident at Disneyland Resort, which might have been the inciting incident for this kind of reevaluation of their live streaming policy on Disney Parks property. So I think we are very attuned to what actually happened, what actually went on, and so forth. So I think we could speak to that, but we can also speak to it from a maybe streamer's perspective, like Bob, for example. He might provide some great commentary and kind of talk about, from his vantage point, what he thinks about all this and more. I think it's going to be a great, show, a great conversation. I'm wanting to get Barry Place in, but obviously he's a streamer himself, and he's making the rounds to all the various parks in Southern California. So one way or another, we'll have him, whether it be live or otherwise. But I think it's really, really going to be good. So definitely check out Vash Sky ParkCast tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern, right before Marvin's own show. We've got at least 2 more stories that we can go ahead and feature on here. Okay. This one we're going to handle a little bit quicker right here in order for timing's sake. Here you go. This one was very, very big, and then got kind of overshadowed by the domestic news coverage, but here you go. Walt Disney World News Today, if I can put this up. What is going on with my screen? Oh, yeah. Okay, and go. A new Space Mountain seems to combine Cosmic Rewind Omni Coaster with tilting track effects. whoa, this is some big stuff right here. We had heard about the tilting track, I think, in the kind of blueprints, layouts, permits, whatever that information actually comes from. I believe we do have it on record that that tilting stuff is coming, but the Omni Coaster has kind of been up for debate. I heard that they were doing this initially. And then I heard later, oh no, they're not going with Omni Coaster. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? Well, that might be part of the story again. This April 27, 2026, over there at Walt Disney World News Today. The new coaster, rumored to be named Space Mountain Earthrise, it probably translates to something better, is under construction in Tomorrowland at Tokyo Disneyland. And thanks to a new video uploaded to YouTube, we have a first look at how, for the first time ever, a ride will combine a tilting track with rotating track vehicles. The brand new Space Mountain at Tokyo Disney Resort is set to open in 2027. The coaster will be Disney's most expensive ride ever. Yes, I think this is well over like $500 million. It is crazy how expensive this is. Which, by the way, I hope this puts into perspective how much these movie productions are when you see, attractions like this come out. Okay. Construction began before the old Space Mountain closed in July of 2024. The video shows a wrapped up attraction ride vehicle on top of a flatbed truck. This ride vehicle is clearly an Omni Coaster car that will span similar to Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind at Epcot. Now, what's made this very kind of difficult is that this is not being built by Vekoma. So Vekoma were the ones that provided that amazing Omni Coaster or ride vehicle system that is used for Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind over there at Epcot. You can kind of see right there what that looks like from Vekoma's vantage. This is being done by Intamin. Now, Intamin is doing their own version of the Omni Coaster technology in the form of Fast and the Furious Hollywood Drift. Okay, so this is all these connections right here, and you can see the linkages between the coaster car and the actual coaster itself. Very, very similar. And that's why a lot of people are saying, oh my goodness, Omni Coaster technology is coming to Tokyo Disneyland's version of Space Mountain. Crazy, crazy stuff. You can see right here what that technology looks like if you've never seen it before. This was a demonstration video that Disney themselves showed, and we've showed multiple times footage on this channel. Fast and Furious footage with this actually being used. Which, by the way, I actually got some confirmation recently that they're now starting to test Fast and Furious with onboard audio, which is really, really cool. That is awesome. So, imagine Velocicoaster if, in fact, it had Omni Coaster technology with, onboard audio. I mean, it's going to be a significant experience, that is for sure. But you can see right there what that could look like. Now, Fast and Furious, while it won't be enclosed in an actual show building, it will have that advantage of actually having inversions with it, which Space Mountain at Tokyo Disney will not. I've seen the layout. I didn't see any inversions there. So, c'est la vie. But it's still going to be a very intense and thrilling experience over there for the Japanese. So that is going to be very, very cool. And yeah, this building actually is going up super quick. I believe the entire dome has been covered now. Has been highlighted by some locals there. Very, very cool stuff indeed. You can see the vehicles being trucked in right there, which is cool. Let me see if I actually have Drew's tweet that shows the dome of this covered. Let me see if I can actually find that, because I think it's actually really, really cool for us theme park fans seeing such an amazing, impressive attraction come together in real time. There you go. This originally by Mickey Mania and shared by Drew the Disney Dude. Which, by the way, I want to go ahead and highlight Drew as well. He has a post on his account talking about the passing of his father and how they need help. So definitely go over to Drew Smith's amazing X account, which, by the way, if you're not following it already, what are you doing? Go ahead and follow him on X, but go ahead and go over there. I think he has a pinned tweet at the top right there, providing for his GoFundMe. which I think is a very, very good cause. I'm going to go ahead and post that in the chat as well. We talked about it a little bit on That Park Place. We also talked about it on Vash and Vixen, and I would be remiss if I didn't actually bring it up here as well. Definitely help out Drew, and even if it's something where you can't necessarily give yourself, right? You can at least share it out and maybe share it to somebody who could help in their own way as well. So here you go. That is that GoFundMe there for Drew. But you can see right here, Drew, who's on top of it all, sharing out Mickey Minnie's video showing the construction progress on Space Mountain Earthrise. Very, very cool. Love that. Yes, that's why I said Tokyo will get it right. Yeah, Nicole Williams. Well, that's just a reflection of Tokyo's mindset versus maybe the other parks around the world, especially from Disney. Let's see right here. 20R. That's only for the Walt Disney parks. He has no reason to go undercover at Universal Studios parks or Gatorland. Oh, I think this is Father Bradley's phone. Okay. All right. Cool. Very, very cool stuff happening in the chat right now. Be part of the conversation. Come on in here. The water is warm. Alrighty. Now we have to turn our attention to something that's a little bit depressing in nature. And maybe I shouldn't use in nature when it comes to this because nature is involved. I don't know if any of you guys heard this. I want to go ahead and feature it here, though. There has been... this is an astounding story of extreme negligence along with greed, honestly, that really provides the crux of the story right here. Here we go from People magazine, and we do have additional material for this as well. Florida Zoo receives 13 underweight sloths from Sloth World following reports of 31 of those sloths expiring or passing away at the attraction. It's by Mona Thomas, published on April 28th, 2026. 31. So, to briefly provide some insight on this, there was a proprietor, an owner who I believe he was partnered with another company as well, who wanted to provide an attraction along the kind of international drive corridor right there. There's a slew of attractions that are provided there, ranging from all types of different things. If you go to like Pigeon Forge, it's a very similar setup there as well. But one of the attractions they were trying to provide was this kind of display of all these different sloths around the world, and they imported dozens of them, and unfortunately, so many of them actually passed away. And this shows 31, but now Orlando 35 now has an elevated count of 52 sloths that passed away when trying to import them from their native regions, like Peru, for example, to Florida. I guess there was a number of things that actually took place. One was dehydration, one was malnourishment, another was this kind of very specific virus that was affecting them, and also, too, the cold weather may have played a factor as well. There are allegations that in the warehouse in which they were being kept, the circuit breaker was tripped. That would have otherwise provided them heat. They can't regulate their own body temperature, or at least not easily. They really depend on the atmosphere that they are in order to provide them their temperature that they use to actually live. That temperature wasn't maintained, and that's where you had a lot of these sloths actually expire, which is unbelievably devastating. I mean, this is like really bad stuff. 52. I mean, come on. I mean, you're talking about very, very docile creatures, which I guess not, I guess they do have their moments, in which, in this case, that's what happened in one of these cases in which two of the sloths got into a fight, and, they're no more because of that, which was really horrible to hear about. But I wanted to go ahead and highlight the story because, these proprietors, whether it be theme parks or other types of amusement offerings, right, they all have a responsibility, not only to their guests, but for their attractions. In this case, these sloths right here, which, whoops, not that one. It is this one right here. These are amazing creatures right here. And to have imported so many of them at one time, and to have so many of them pass away underneath this care, if you could even call it that, was really, really devastating. And it's something that I hate bringing up. I don't like to talk about stories like this, but it's such an important story that I had to feature it here, at least somewhat right here. 13 sloths transferred from Orlando's Sloth World, this is back to People magazine right here, to Central Florida Zoo and Botanical Gardens have survived the first 2 days at their new home. According to information obtained by people from the zoo, the sloths arrived on Friday, April 24th, after Sloth World, is what this attraction was going to be, donated the animals to the facility. Central Florida Zoo's veterinary team examined the sloths upon arrival and determined that most of the animals were, quote, severely dehydrated and underweight. While speaking with People, a zoo spokesperson confirmed that one sloth still requires critical care. However, all 13 are showing signs of initial improvement. The sloths are currently in quarantine, where they will remain for at least 30 days, which is very, very good. Apparently, they have very, very sensitive digestive habits and so forth, and you really have to care for them in a very particular way. And unfortunately, this facility, from what I have seen, again, this is all allegations, but when these animals were taken into the care of the zoo right here, they made the report that, hey, look, listen, we have dehydration issues, we have underweight issues, all of that. I just don't believe that they were providing the proper care. And I think that's evidenced by how many actually expired within their care. 52? Crazy. Absolutely insane. There is good news, though, on this front right there. Apparently, Congressman Maxwell Alejandro Frost from Florida gave this post right here. Good news, Sloth World has been shut down and will not reopen. The 14 surviving sloths have been moved to the Central Florida Zoo for proper care. Thank you to officials and everyone who reached out to my office and the advocates who helped bring this to light. I'll keep fighting for accountability and animal welfare. So they were shut down. That is good. Apparently, one of the co-owners is seeking bankruptcy protection, so we'll see how that goes. But that's good. You know, it's not a terrible idea to showcase these animals, right? And I do believe they may have been thinking, well, sloths, you know, they're docile creatures, or slow moving or whatever. We could just go ahead, keep them up in cages and show them to everybody. However, when you actually look at the allegations alleged, apparently maybe those cages were undersized, which we've heard a lot of criticisms about related to orcas and so forth for SeaWorld. So that's definitely a thing. You know, and if you don't have the proper care that's provided here, you really shouldn't be in charge of sloths, I don't think. And they captured these animals out in the wild, acquired them from like Peru, Guyana, I believe, and so forth. It's just, there's just some practices here that aren't very good. We never like to see this, especially in the amusement space. You do have a responsibility when it comes to animals, and then there are proprietors who have done a particularly good job. I will say, Disney, this is one of the strong suits for them. They have been involved in almost no controversy because they spent considerable amounts of money to build Animal Kingdom and provide those amazing veterinary services. Also, too, those facilities in which they're penned and stored, right? They went out of their way to avoid issues like this. And to be honest, that's how you do it responsibly. Unfortunately, with something like Sloth World, it looked like they were more concerned about money and revenue than they were actual care for the animals. And I understand it's a scene that's played out multiple times, but in this case, it was particularly tragic. So, not good. I wanted to go ahead and bring everybody up to speed on it because I think it's an important story to share and a valuable lesson that we can all have. The website currently has shows. Good luck with that. Apparently, they did pre-sale tickets, which people are asking for refunds, by the way. Let's see. yes, customers demand refunds. Yeah, they pre-sold tickets to this thing because people are really excited about sloths, especially with the proliferation of like Flash, for example, from Zootopia, as mentioned by MJ earlier right there. I guess one of them was named Flash. Now no more. That's super sad. So yeah, they were looking to take advantage of that. And look, if you could do it responsibly, I suppose go ahead. But there's certainly some caveats right there related to the proper care for these animals. If you can't give them a proper home, if you can't give them proper enclosures, if you can't give them proper food, if you can't care for their well-being, then you shouldn't be doing this. Because I do believe, animals being on display, I think do serve some very important educational purposes, right? But it has to be handled responsibly. Indeed. Zoos have done more to bring awareness to endangered animals than most are aware. Disney Busch Gardens, Tampa Bay, and SeaWorld have all done a tremendous effort in helping animals' awareness and care. Yes, I mean, I understand there are allegations related to SeaWorld. There's no question about that. But overall, and that's the thing, too, even with SeaWorld, there were a lot of people who spoke out against Blackfish, not just because of the content there within, because and then they had issues with that as well. But it was like, no, SeaWorld does a lot of good. And a lot of the people that work there do a lot of good. And there are people that, have gone into the realm of, have gone into the pursuit of marine biology simply for the fact that SeaWorld has existed. And, so it's like, yes, there's some harm here, but have they necessarily done more good than harm? And obviously those are different moral issues, ethical issues that people have to work out for themselves. But it is this kind of interesting thing where if you can showcase these animals responsibly, then I do believe in doing that. But again, what that responsibility looks like, especially as it relates to individual animals and different species and their needs, is certainly going to be different for every single person. In this case, it wasn't good for the 52 sloths that were affected. So that's no good. Never like to see that. But again, we cover the amusement industry, no matter where those stories emanate from. That one, though, I thought was really, really important. Okay, let's go ahead and round out our show right here. I don't believe our guest is coming on in. So let's go ahead and go on to happier news. In this case, we're going back to Disneyland. We're spending a lot of time there recently, actually. I didn't mean for that to happen. I hope to showcase more Walt Disney World stories in the future, but Disneyland is where the action's at, apparently. So people gathered around to see off Kylo Ren for the last time. Yes, his final appearance has come up. That was yesterday. And by night's end, Disney would officially roll out the new characters, or I should say, returning characters from the original trilogy, but new to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge: Princess Leia, Han Solo, and Luke Skywalker. So they're making their appearances right here. Big news. Let me go ahead and let's see right there. Let's see. All right, we're going to play a little Sachi here. I'm sorry, it's the only clip I have. Gotta do something real fast.
And so what we've tried to do is really bring that shape language from the architecture.
But like what we love to talk about at WDI is shape language. And we often refer to shape language.
There's such iconic shape language in Spaceship Reverie attraction. We really wanted to make sure that we fused to that throughout the space.
Well, how about bringing shape language of Star Wars characters to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge? Come on now. Well, apparently that's what has happened. Well, I got a nice little response from the crowd there. Thanks so much, MJ, for playing that one right there. Yes. Let's bring some shape language here in the form of original stormtroopers, or maybe Darth Vader, which indeed they did. But Kylo Ren saw the crowds for a little while. Good. Now moving on. Apparently, for Star Wars Night, by the way, they closed down Rise of Resistance early. I guess it's a way to have the attraction open for the actual event itself, which I guess, but it's kind of like, why do you close this thing early? Why don't you have this on the same, time scale that you do for like, Indiana Jones Adventure, for example, right? That has a significant amount of cast members attached to it, However, when the park opens, that ride opens. When the park closes, that park closes. Rise of Resistance at Disneyland is the only attraction that I can think of currently right now that does not follow park hours. Maybe Walt Disney as well, I think. That audio animatronic show at the front of the park right there. Maybe that's the only one. But Rise of Resistance should be open for the entire run. I don't know why it closes early, whether it be in preparation for a Star Wars night event or not. It's very, very weird. But there you go. We had check-in for the event, as provided here by Laughing Place. And honestly, the projections on the castle looked pretty cool. That's a pretty cool way to dress up the castle for such an event like this. You're going to be paying a lot of money. So, hey, I like to see Disneyland get into the act. Also, too, Small World was also featured as part of this. I've not seen Small World done up like with these kind of atmospheric projections right here. This is pretty cool to see Small World join in. Let's see if I can get a bigger view of this. There you go. We've got a little bit of a Tatooine setting right there going on. I like that. Little Rebel insignia making up the Raleigh Crump clock right there. Very, very cool. We also have my favorite projection of the night right here on Space Mountain. This one was super cool. As you know, Hyperspace Mountain is coming back. This kind of Star Wars overlay that they do to Space Mountain once a year. Usually with Season of the Force, which has not made its return. It did not make its return this year, and that's unfortunate. Don't like to see that, but c'est la vie. We're still getting Hyperspace Mountain, which was the best part of the event anyway, so there you go. But you can see those projections. Wow, they look pretty good. I understand. It's the old and busted 77 version of this attraction, but hey, you know what? They have it looking sharp for Star Wars night, which is pretty cool. Also, too, Mandalorian was out there. You wanted to go ahead and get your meet and greet with Mandalorian Grogu, the same Mandalorian Grogu that's featured actually every single day at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. You could see him in his meet and greet next to Small World, which is an interesting location for this character to be in. Couldn't put him in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. That would be too obvious. Okay, there you go. As you saw earlier, we have Han Solo making the rounds here. Let me see if I can actually play a little bit of the audio. There is John Williams music. If there's any John Williams music, we'll have to shut it down because that is just a copyright fiasco. But here you go. Let's see if we can get them.
So, I know you've traveled the galaxies. You've seen many creatures among the stars. Has anybody ever scared you just by the way they look?
Just by the way, say that again.
Just by the way they look. Have they ever scared you just by the way they look?
Jabba, every time.
Every time?
Absolutely. It's hard to look at.
Yeah? Do you ever get nightmares from the scary things you've seen in space?
No.
No? You're too tough for that?
Nothing too overbearing. Come on. Just do it after a while.
I mean, you bunk with
travel.
Chewie,
I was going to say, you travel around with the Wookiee.
Yeah.
You're used to things like that. Nothing
I guess so, right? So you got Han Solo out there. You got a little bit of John Williams music. I think we'll be okay. I think, hopefully. Oh, YouTube, go easy on me. There you go. You now have Han Solo. This is also uploaded by the Cali Bay over there on X. You have Han Solo with Leia outside of the Millennium Falcon, which is really, really cool to see. I was hopeful that we would get Chewbacca and Han Solo, but Han and Leia, that's pretty cool right there. I love that. I love the banter between them, and that is very, very cool indeed. We also have Han Solo with, I believe, Chewbacca. Yeah, there you go. There you go. He's there. Good. Fantastic. They alluded to the fact that Chewbacca was going to be in another area and Han Solo was going to be with Leia, exclusively in this location. I thought, that's lame. Have them together. Have the characters interact. What are you doing? But he's there with Han Solo, at least for Star Wars Night, fixing the Millennium Falcon. Very good. These are good things. Things that should have been in the land 7 years ago, but hey, I will take them. And Han Solo's got that swagger and costume looking pretty good. Looking better than what we saw with that promotional photography as was originally released, I think, 2 weeks ago now? So there you go. We also have the Star Wars music. I know you can't hear it, but Star Wars music is actually playing in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and man, it changes the vibe significantly. Holy smokes. Music is just one of those things that just really kind of, it has the ability to transport you instantaneously to those worlds in a way that architecture itself might not be able to. You know, when you walk into like Harry Potter world, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, like Hogsmeade and so forth, when you walk into those spaces, right, and you hear that John Williams music, and you hear those chimes, those bells, and everything associated with that, it just gets you in a mood. It just puts you in a time and place that is associated closely with these characters, with these stories, with these franchises. That just does something to your psyche, and it's really, really cool to get that, experience that here. And I think that is a big part of why this place just didn't feel like it was from the Star Wars universe. Without that music to transport you there, it just didn't complete that vision. Now, I'm not saying all of these problems are alleviated with music, but it does do a significant amount of heavy lifting to put you into that Star Wars universe right there. So that's pretty cool. I do believe Go and Shogi, they are going to give him a vest for the summer. This was just at night, which I don't know if it was particularly cool at night here, but the Gamma Jacket in this instance. And then you have, as we reported earlier, C-3PO right there. That is super cool, especially with that Star Wars music taking place in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge with those Star Wars characters. Hey, this place is starting to feel like Star Wars after 7 years of this place being open. Who knew? It took 7 years to put Star Wars music in your Star Wars land. Wow, that's really something. But C-3PO is there. Now, C-3PO will be an offering, I think, limited to Star Wars Night, which is a shame, but for people who are there, at least they got something really, really cool. Let's see, O2RR coming on in here. It really does had that experience over at Super Nintendo World and How to Train Your Dragon at Epic. Yes, when you hear that music, right, when you hear those amazing musical cues, it just does something. It just really does put you in there. And it was something that Star Wars Galaxy's Edge was desperately needing. I think it still needs more, but it's a really great start. But the good times weren't limited to just Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. It's pretty cool right here what actually took place during the Star Wars night. In an unscheduled appearance, Darth Maul did make his way out, which I don't know if Darth Maul himself was previously scheduled, but he did make his way out there on the Tomorrowland Terrace stage on the east side of Disneyland in the Tomorrowland area. But it wasn't only that, though. Apparently, the voice actor for Darth Maul that you are hearing so often in recent media, as depicted in by Lucasfilm, whether it be Clone Wars, Rebels, the Ball series, and so forth, the voice actor Sam Witwer made an appearance here as well to join Darth Maul right there. Let's see if we can get some audio on this guy. I don't think there's music here, but we'll see.
New animated series, Star Wars Maul Shadow Lords. So please, give a huge Star Wars welcome to the one, the only, Sam Witwer!
It's my dad? Okay. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool to get Darth Maul there.
You watching?
And I think he posed with Darth Maul as well, which I thought I had footage of. I don't at this point right now. I don't know how they're doing the lines for C-3PO, but he was interacting with the audience. Let's see if I can get some audio on this one. Let's see. Okay, so he's not interacting there, but I did see, let me see if I can actually find it on the fly here. There was a video in which he was interacting with the audience. Let me see if I can actually find that right now. I might not be able to, but we're going to try. We're going to try. I know he was talking, so I kind of want to highlight that for you guys. I try to provide you all the information and resources that I have. Sometimes I miss a couple of things, but let's see. Yes, here we go. Looks like I was able to find it. No! Come on. Give me access. Give me the access that I need. How can I gain access to that? I don't know. It's here. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I'll give you the next best thing. Here is Tommy Toon's Instagram account, which, by the way, I've had the pleasure of meeting Tommy Toon on a number of occasions in these parks right here. Actually, maybe done some shows with him. I actually don't know, but he's a good guy anyway. He's a really great guy. I'll go ahead and put his Instagram in the chat right there. Unlike his maybe 8th video, he has C-3PO featured in there, and that's where you actually get his audio right there. I should have had that in advance. I do apologize, guys. Sorry about that, but he is there in that form, which is really pretty cool to see. Try one more search query right here. Try to get him if I can. No, just taking me to the same links. Darn it. Yeah, I'm not. There's a login process I have to go through on this computer, and I haven't yet. So there you go. Tommy Toon, though, he's out there. Go ahead and give him a follow anyway, because he does some really great work in the theme park space. Also, too, he's got that video of C-3PO talking. So examine for yourselves, folks, on what is going on with our beloved golden protocol droid. So very, very cool indeed. Oh, I love this right here. Let's see. We have Capture the Magic out there. It's insane that it took them this long to add Star Wars music to the Star Wars land. Yes, it is. 7 years, Jared. 7 years to add that to the Star Wars land. But they eventually got their Star Wars music. Oh, boy. Very, very cool. Going Shogi, though, with the hitting the like button, subscribe. Thank you so much for that. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining me on this amazing episode of Vash Sky ParkCast. Really do appreciate all of you out there, every single one of you. I think really you are making this stream of mine possible. So thank you so much for that. Capture the Magic, also Bob Iger, but you're correct. Space Dave, yeah, I think Kathleen Kennedy was being called out by Space Dave, yeah. Yeah, it was the two of them. It was two of them deciding on this. Kathleen Kennedy advocated for it, and Bob Iger made the decision. So there you go. You're both right. For sure. It is really, really sad, like, what was taking place at Lucasfilm. And I think the best version of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge will have been forever kept from us because of Kathleen Kennedy's influence, unfortunately. And, well, Bob Iger's poor decision-making when it came to the future of this franchise. But there you go. But encouraging news to see out of this theme park. Hopefully this transfers over to Florida for Disney's Hollywood Studios' version of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. But we will cover that at the appropriate time, if in fact it indeed happens, which I believe it will. Anywho's, we also have some amazing coverage tomorrow over there on Vash Sky ParkCast, here, the channel you're actually watching right now, at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be covering, is live streaming really ending at the Disney parks? Very interesting discussion that a lot of people have a lot of opinions on, and obviously we've covered, high-profile streaming events and how they have gone wrong. Should they get rid of all of them? Are they getting rid of all of them? Well, you'll find out in tomorrow's coverage right here for a very fantastic in-depth analysis with some experts as well. Also, too, later today on this channel, we'll be simulcasting Jared's amazing stream over there, at Capture the Magic. I believe it's Theme Park Hoppin', if I'm not mistaken, is the show titled right there. I don't want to get it wrong there, Jared, but I do believe that it is what it is. You are going to be joining me along with Jared, OG55, and others. Sometimes the fourth person changes, so I just want to go ahead and be respectful. You're going to join all of us and talking about these amazing theme park stories and maybe other stories as well that involve the entertainment industry. That would be pretty cool as well. But you can actually see it right here on Vash Sky ParkCast if you are subscribed. That is going to be, I believe, at 5:30 our time. So that would be, 8:30 Eastern, if I'm not mistaken. I do believe is when that is going to be. So definitely stay tuned for that. That's going to be a fun discussion. But our regular coverage here on Vash Sky ParkCast will continue tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern. And on Saturday, we have Vash and Vixen right there. The hottest show seemingly on this channel right here. A lot of people are super excited for it, so that's awesome. Really very cool. So for all you guys who have been gifted memberships or are green in the chat right there, you can join us on Saturdays at 3 p.m. Eastern, where I get together with Vixen and we break down even more news in some cases, but a lot of these kind of stories that involve park history and entertainment history, and it's a super cool show. I love it. We did all kinds of stuff involving like characters at Disneyland, right? And I'm not just talking like the Fab Five or Luke, Han, and Leia, but I'm also talking about stuff like, for example, the Phantom of the Opera, who used to make appearances on at Disneyland on Main Street, if you can believe it right there. Yes, it was an actual thing. We cover that history and we cover why that actually took place, which a lot of people don't actually know the full history of. So that's a pretty fun show. Definitely check out the last Vash and Vixen. This next week, we're going to be talking about, maybe Disney is going back vintage when it came to like a Carnation, for example. For people who don't know, there's a sign available that people can see on the exterior of a portion of Main Street in which it denotes what's inside, right? And I believe previously it was the Carnation Cafe, but underneath it, which has been exposed multiple times recently, is the original, I believe, Carnation sign that used to exist out there in the 1950s. And people are like, hey, is this staying around? It might be. And we'll go over that coverage of not only that sign, but also, too, maybe some other murals that hide behind some of the top layers of the parks that you actually see. Like, for example, the beautiful Mary Blair murals that are behind the Tomorrowland artwork that you actually see at Disneyland. They're still there. We'll go over all of them and much more over there on Vash and Vixen. It's going to be really, really cool. We get nitty and gritty. We get super nerdy. We get super deep into it. Uncovering all of this stuff. It's a whole lot of fun. Definitely check us out. Okay, let's go ahead and have you guys redirected to Follow the Bradley's Fun over there on Ron's channel. I haven't actually looked this up yet. I want to just go ahead and make sure that this is set, because we don't want to send you out without a place to go. Right there. And yes, Follow the Bradley's Fun at the time. Okay, he's starting in 2 minutes right there. Let's go ahead and get you on over to Ron's excellent channel, and we can go ahead and join him over there. It's going to be a lot of fun, I am sure. He always does something great over there with his dish. So that'll be a really, really fun stuff indeed. Daredevil Born Again loses half its audience. Uh-oh. Well, I guess we're going to go ahead and tune in for that story. Should be good. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning on into Vash Sky ParkCast. Again, we are going to have, a mixture of me sometimes, maybe some other panelists right here when appropriate. But I really do appreciate you giving this channel a view. Again, you guys supporting out there when you're viewing things, liking things, subscribing to things. It really does all help. Also, too, just touchy, the Juliet, the other people who have so proudly supported this channel via Super Chats and everything else, like Chris Dickerson, for example, Freedom Seeker. Thank you to every single one of you. All right, let's go ahead and go on over. Very much appreciate you guys. Remember, especially with Luke Skywalker making his triumphant return, the sky is the limit.